the sun starts to fade away, baby, my love for you will still shine. You know my
Hello and welcome to Mr. and Mrs.
Good evening.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Whatever time it is, whichever part of the world you are, you're most welcome today. Today we are having a very interesting conversation. I mean, we always say we're having a very interesting conversation, but today I think we're having a very interesting conversation which you want to be part of.
I think what's interesting about the conversations is the fact that we really believe in making marriage work. And the thing is with making marriage work is it's not just the tips on how to love on each other, but it's looking at marriage from a holistic point of view to say even your health may affect the condition and the state of your marriage.
Absolutely.
You know, your finances can affect the state of your marriage. Your sex life can affect the state of your marriage. And so today we're looking at marriage from the perspective of your mental wellness. You know, that side of things as well may affect the state of your marriage. If you are not mentally well, the condition of your marriage may change altogether. But you know, the interesting thing is the moment that we talk about mental wellness, most people remove themselves from that conversation because they feel or they think they are not a part of it. But, you know, as you shall find out as we continue to talk tonight, mental wellness affects everybody and anybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have...
So, you know, before we even introduce our guest, please do us a favor. Why don't you share this stream with everybody that's on your timeline so that they can also come on over. They can join the conversation today. Please send as many questions as you want to send, as you can send, or as you can think of concerning the issue of mental wellness. I mean, we're not just talking about just the normal things that are on the surface, but just even the deeper things to do with mental wellness in marriage. How do you manage in a relationship? How can you even spot that your spouse is got a mental condition that they're battling with? You know, we're talking things like depression. How do you know? How can you tell that your spouse is depressed? And how can you assist them? How can you help them out of that depression? How many times do we always say, just snap out of it? How many times do we say, hey, just be happy? Come on, you know, why are you so sad? But we don't know that there's actually stuff that's going on in the behind the scenes, in the background. And so tonight, hopefully by the time we're done, we will be able to answer some of those questions. And so even if you're not in that situation yourself, I'm sure around you may have people that you know, couples that you know that are currently dealing with that situation. So
And as you
type your name.
Yes, please.
Let us know where you're watching from so we can give you a big shout out. Yeah.
All right. So our guest tonight is Jessie Mhaka. She's a founder of BeMindFit. BeMindFit, an organization that reaches out to people struggling with mental health. She's a mental health awareness ambassador. She is a stress control, mental strength training, and mindset change coach. She holds an executive master of business administration degree and a bachelor's in sociology and a certificate in mental health awareness. So this is someone who is quite passionate about this area of life. And tonight we're taking this time just to find out from her what we can do to make sure that we are mentally well. So help us welcome Jessie Mhaka, who helps us with this conversation on mental health.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us. We know you have been very busy. You've had such a busy day. First and foremost, congratulations on the launch of your book.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get straight into it, Jessie. We want to talk about mental wellness. What is mental wellness?
Mental wellness, I think, as you indicated earlier on, is gravely misunderstood. As you have rightly said, the moment you talk about mental health, many people want to run away from you. Many people don't even want to listen to you because no one wants to be associated with mental health, because everybody thinks that mental health means mental retardation or mental illness. But as you have rightly said, mental health is an awareness of the condition of your mind and your brain. It is an awareness of how well you are psychologically, mentally, and even socially. So mental health touches a lot of the aspects of our lives. So when we say, let's talk about mental health, we are saying to you, Simba, how mentally fit are you? Are you in a state where you are able to flourish and do better and help others? Or are we saying, Ivy, are you struggling with psychological or emotional issues such that we need to sit down and say to you, what is the matter? What can we do to help you? So mental health is a subject that we need to be very comfortable with, the way we are comfortable talking about high blood pressure or diabetes or cancer, because as you have rightly said, mental health problems, I think, are the most common problems or illnesses world over. The World Health Organization actually says that 1 in every 5 people suffer from a mental health problem at any one point in their lives. 1 in every 5. I don't think, and I don't know if there's any other ailment that we know of that has got that level of prevalence, which means that everyone is almost affected. We are 3 here. If there were just 2 more, one of us would be, struggling. Okay. Yeah. And it just doesn't end there. It goes on to say that even our children, 1 in every 10 children, and by the way, 1 in 5 was before COVID started. And now I was reading an article which was actually saying, I think it was the Center for Disease Control. It was actually saying that the statistics have gone worse. It's actually 1 in every 2. So as the 2 of you sit there, we don't know. We'll find out today. So things have really, our world is broken. Our lives have been disrupted. And definitely the first place that gets affected is our minds. And sometimes we were never taught how to take care of our minds. We've always been taught how to take care of our bodies, how to take care of our, what else, our resources, ladies, you need to be well groomed, guys, and all those things. But we've never really been taken through a lesson on how to take care of our minds. Yet our lives are anchored on our minds and our brains. And yet we just think they do Vega. They do Vega.
Not enough,
so
though, that
big
we
up
are
to you
going
guys.
to school. Like when you say when you say we've never been taught about how to take care of our minds, is it not enough that we go to school? Isn't that a place where we are taught how to take care of our minds? When we go to school from preschool right to primary school, high school, tertiary education for those that end up going to university. But the whole time that we are in school, is that not can that not be considered as being taught in how to take care of our mind?
I think we are taught to take care of our minds in the sense of when things are okay, all things being equal. You need to think, you need to make decisions, you need to do this. But then there is a missing link in terms of saying to you now, there is a point where your mind is going to run dry, where your mind is going to go on E in terms of its functionality, in terms of its vitality. And when that happens, what is it that you're supposed to do? That
Right.
is missing in the curriculum of school, be it primary, secondary, or tertiary education. Yes, we are told how to use maybe our brains. Maybe I would love Simba to kind of make a bit. I know we often use mind and brain interchangeably. But for the
Yeah, yeah.
purposes of this discussion, I would like to separate the two and say the brain is the physical structure. It's something that you can put and you can actually say, oh, there is the grain, the 3-pound gray matter that sits in my head. But when we are talking about the mind, we are talking about something that is intangible. So just to make it a bit more clearer, the brain is like the computer hardware. It's something that you can touch. You can remove some parts and then replace them. But the mind is like the computer software. You can't touch it. You
Right.
just know that software has been installed. It's there. And the two of them, they do work hand in hand. You can't separate the two, but one is tangible, one is intangible. So when we're talking about the brain, we're talking about, you know, the physical structure of the brain, the cerebrum, the brain, the brain stem, and all those things that we learn in school. But when we're talking about the mind, we are talking about your thoughts, your feelings, your decisions, and all those things. So, Simba, just to answer your question, I think what we've been taught about is with regards to the brain, but not much to do with the mind. So sometimes you find that there is an imbalance in terms of that discussion. Therefore, people find themselves sometimes having problems, but not knowing how to deal with them.
Right.
So Jessie, today we just want to clarify something.
Yes.
When I say that I'm unwell physically, there's symptoms that I feel. Maybe I feeling weak. Maybe I have pains and aches somewhere.
Yes.
If I am unwell mentally, what does that mean?
When you are unwell mentally, you struggle to think properly. You struggle to make decisions. You struggle mainly emotionally, because our emotions, that stuff that we then feel as sadness, as I'm hurt, I'm heartbroken, emotions are a result of your thoughts. Emotions don't fall from the heavens like dew. You think about something, and that thought, it chemically then triggers chemical reactions in your brain that causes you to have that sensation, which you then call an emotion. So when you are not feeling okay, you are feeling sad, you are feeling lonely, you are feeling angry, you are feeling jealous, all those are signs that your mind is not in the right place. Because I believe that God created us to thrive and to flourish on this earth. And we are created to live in harmony, our soul, our spirit, and our body. But most of the times you find that our bodies could be okay. Maybe our spirit is okay. We are going to church, we are worshiping, but our soul is in disarray. A human body has got an average of about 50 trillion cells. And all those cells are meant to operate and function in balance and in harmony. Now, that's our natural state of being. That's when you are in harmony, your 50 trillion cells are in harmony, which is rare. Then we say you're okay because you're feeling great, you're feeling good. If you
Right.
are if you are faced with whatever you are faced with, you're like, oh, well, that's life. And you're crying one moment, the next 2 seconds, you're bubbling. Ivy, how can you be laughing? I thought Simba, slapped at you. And you're like, oh, well, it's life. I know he loves me. That was a mistake. Okay, bad example. But I just want to say, when you are in balance, this is what happens to you. Even if something goes wrong with you, you can fall down, but you quickly rise up and you carry on. So most of the times we find ourselves with serious imbalances because and then when we're in that, our cells are in that imbalance, we feel emotional pain, which I was just talking about, and we also end up feeling physical pain. So Ivy, the symptoms that you were describing, most of those symptoms are actually a result of the mind that is not functioning well. Why do I say that? Because medical research has established that up to 98% of all illnesses and diseases are caused by our thought life. So sometimes something goes wrong, 98% yes. So sometimes something goes wrong in your mind or in your brain, and you start feeling emotionally sad. And the next thing you go to the hospital, you've got high blood pressure, you've got cancer, you've got arthritis. 98% of sicknesses are a result
so it's a
of our
chain
thought life.
reaction.
Yes, it's a chain reaction.
As you're talking, it's very unfortunate that culturally and even spiritually, mental health issues have not really been dealt or handled well. From a cultural perspective, the thing is you're being bewitched. The person who is showing some signs of mental imbalance, it's witchcraft. In the church, a person showing signs of mental or you're demon possessed. How then, do we reconcile the whole conversation? Rather, how do we bring the conversation to the fore and just shed more light to say, okay, maybe it's not really being bewitched. Maybe it's not really just because you're demon possessed, but there are mental health issues that are explained, and this is what needs to be done.
Okay. I believe the first thing that is missing in our families, in our communities, and in our lives as individuals is awareness. We are not aware about what mental health is. So therefore, we tend to just then label mental health as something that happens to somebody who's, as you say, rightly said, who is probably demon possessed, or if it's in our cultural background, someone pangozi, they've done something terrible, and then a spell was cast on them. That's why then people shun issues of mental health, because they're just associated with these things that people don't want to talk about it at all. So the first point of call, the first issue we need to do is awareness. It is talking about mental health publicly and openly, the same way we talk about every other illness and disease or any other social ill that we are faced with in our lives. So when we talk about it and then we explain exactly what is happening to you, and then people may begin to appreciate and realize that there is nothing to be ashamed of if you find yourself with a mental health illness. A person with depression, to me, is just the same as someone who's suffering from arthritis or high blood pressure. Someone is suffering in the body and the other one is suffering in the brain. And nobody says that the brain must never fail to perform at its peak, because the body also does that. And more so in the environment that we are living in, as I explained earlier on, all these things that are happening in our world, they are having a direct impact on our minds and on our brains, and therefore it ends up affecting us in our bodies. So we need to be to be aware of these things and all these facts, so that people may understand, and then they will shun issues of stigma and speaking ill about people who find themselves with those problems. And you know what happens? Because of this stigma that is associated with mental health, someone, as Ivy was asking, someone may actually begin to feel that something is so wrong with me. I think something is not right, but they cannot open up. Why? Because they are afraid people will look at them funny and say begin to come up with all sorts of theories. And guess what that person does? They keep quiet. But then because something is wrong, it will continue to be wrong. So one day you just find yourself, either you have broken down, your system has broken down, or you are walking on the street without clothes on, talking to yourself, or you are hanging by the rope. So that is the terrible thing about stigma, about lack of information, because those who begin to suffer are afraid to speak out and reach out for help, and they die. It's just like when you are a couple in a house and you find that your husband is beginning to sweat a lot, is beginning to feel weak, is visiting the gents too often, is being thirsty all the time. Definitely when you see those signs, something says to you, my partner must be having a diabetes problem. What do? You don't just look at them, do you? You actually say to them, "Han, we need to go and see the doctor." If they refuse, you actually call their best friend or their family and say, "Guys, something is wrong here. If we don't take this guy to hospital, we might lose him." This is the kind of agency that we also need to have the moment we realize that someone is exhibiting signs of mental strain or emotional strain. They need to get attention as much as somebody who is showing signs of a heart attack. Someone says, "I've got palpitations. Oh, my chest is breaking." We quickly get them into their car to the hospital. This is the same agency that we need to have when we discover that somebody is struggling emotionally or mentally.
So Jessie, earlier you spoke about symptoms that we can pick up from that mentally you're not doing so well. And interestingly, you mentioned, even jealousy being a symptom of being unwell mentally.
It is.
So my question to you is, at what point do we then say this is a symptom that needs attention? Because it looks like there's violence there. At what point do I say, this level must really need attention now?
Okay. As you rightly said, Ivy, it's very normal for us, because you are human beings. It's very normal for us to feel sad, to feel lonely, to feel jealous, to feel all those things. But when you find out, for example, we're talking about couples, right? For example, you know each other, you've lived with each other for years. You understand that when Ivy gets angry, she does this, but after 5 minutes, she snaps out. Or Simba really gets angry when you do this to him, but after 2 days, he's okay. But then you realize that Simba has been angry for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. When it is then persistent and there's no change in his behavior or in his outlook, then you realize that there could be a problem. So it boils down to you knowing somebody and realizing that someone has changed, and it's a prolonged emotional reaction to something which is that's just minor. Maybe you just forget to iron his favorite shirt and he's throwing tantrums. He's never done that before. That is a sign that something could be not going on okay with this person. So just to add on to this signs and symptoms, you find that when we talk about mental health, the most common condition is depression. We have several. We've got depression, we've got bipolar, we've got PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We have the postnatal, the one that mothers often feel suffer from after giving birth. And we've got schizophrenia. And those are the major ones. But depression and anxiety, sorry, I left out the anxiety, but depression is the most common mental health illness that affects most people. So these are some of the symptoms that if you see your partner, your child, your friend exhibiting these symptoms, and over a prolonged period of time, maybe over days or weeks, without an explanation to say, maybe I failed an exam, or I've broken up with my boyfriend, or my child has just been impregnated, then you know there is need. So we've got feelings of sadness, tearfulness. You just want to cry for no reason. Feelings of hopelessness. Someone wakes up in the morning, Simba, wake up. We need to go and have our run as usual. Simba says, no, you know what? There's no point in this life to just run. Why should I run? So someone just exhibits signs of hopelessness. And then we have changes in appetite too. You know how your child, how your spouse often eats the amount of food that they eat. Sometimes 3 days in a row, they don't want to eat. So sometimes as women, we are quick to say, yet someone has really begun to experience mental problems and they've lost appetite. But what happens with depression is, in most cases, someone who exhibits these symptoms does not even know that they are suffering from depression. They just know something is wrong. They can't put their finger to it. If you ask them, they can't even explain. So that's why sometimes they even become more harsh. They don't want to be bothered because they don't have answers for you. So it's now up to you, the spouse or the relative or the friend, to watch out that this person is exhibiting these things, but they can't explain it. Then you know it's time to call the doctor. Then sleep disturbances as well, either sleeping too much, especially sleeping too much, and sleeping too little is a sign of depression. Loss of interest or pleasure in normal activities. I mentioned going for a jog, watching soccer, and going to some music festival. Someone all of a sudden just doesn't want to do those things anymore. Fatigue, tiredness which doesn't end. Even sometimes small tasks requires extra time to do. That's a sign. Anxiety, someone is just anxious. You close just nicely and they are jumping. What is it? No, you shouldn't just slam the door, agitation, anger outbursts. You're trying to talk to your partner, they're just, throwing a tantrum. They get the keys, they go away. You don't understand why, but what have I done? So sometimes we are quick to say, maybe it's me, maybe what. Sometimes, and in most cases, this person is just exhibiting signs of depression.
Wow.
Sometimes it's feelings of worthlessness or feeling guilty about things they did 7 years ago, And sometimes, even if it's yourself, you find that you have trouble thinking. You want to just think about a solution of something very minor, but you can't concentrate, you can't make decisions. And then the worst case scenarios is when you then begin to have frequent thoughts of death. You just begin to feel that, my goodness, what if I die? What if I die? Either you tell somebody or you don't tell somebody. And then, of course, including suicidal thoughts. And then sometimes, Ivy, some unexplained physical symptoms are a sign of depression. When I was first diagnosed of depression myself, I had been going to see my doctor for a very long time, complaining of the same symptoms. And he used to carry out all the tests, all the x-rays. And he says, Jessie, I find nothing with you. Okay, I'll give you 2 days to rest. I'll go and rest, come back again. Until one day he was trying to be nice. And it was like, you know what? Sometimes when we can't find the reason why you are not feeling so well, then sometimes it's got something to do with thinking. So I think you need to talk to somebody. He was just trying to be nice, but he was just saying, girl, I think you are depressed. You need to go and see a psychiatrist. So sometimes unexplained physical symptoms are a sign that someone is struggling with a mental health illness.
Oh, wow.
You mentioned that a lot of the times when someone is struggling with that, they themselves don't even know.
Yes.
As a spouse, how then do you bring it to their attention? Especially knowing that this could be a very delicate situation, and if I just go blunt and tell them about it, it might make things worse, or they may be just go into denial. So how can I bring it up in a way that will at least they will receive it, and then we can then get help?
Yes. It's quite tricky because people are different. Because you know your partner, you know your spouse, you probably need to find a way of bringing it up to them without making them look like you're saying to them, you know what, you've lost control. But the first important thing, Simba, is to yourself. Once you pick that your partner could be struggling, learn more about mental health yourself. Learn more about depression yourself. If you want to do some reading, if you want to look for the Jessies of this day and you talk to them, my partner is doing this, what does this mean? And talking to your doctor, then when you learn more, at least you've got a better understanding to track the symptoms that your partner is exhibiting. And then secondly, the most important thing that a person suffering from depression needs is companionship. Just be there for your partner. And it's critical that as you are there, nicely introduce the subject, talk about it openly, reassure them, because remember, you have learned more about it, you've read about it. You can say, you know what, if you think it's difficult to come out right, listen, you know what, I was reading about this story, it's quite sad. It was like this, and you say something that is similar to what they are going through, and you say, you know what, they just went to the doctor and all of a sudden they discovered it was depression and they were put on medication. Now he's okay, he's bubbling. So sometimes, hey, we just need to talk about these things. So indirectly help them to understand that it's okay not to feel okay because we are only human. And once that happens, it's okay for us to go and seek help. So you as the partner, the most important thing is to focus on the feelings of your partner and not on their actions. Because when someone begins to
Right.
feel depressed, the first person that they want to hurt is you for some reason.
Oh,
Yes. So sometimes you also quick to say, you know what? He's not even talking to me. So I'm also whatever, whatever. But this is the time you need to
Wow.
focus on the feelings of your partner, not on their actions.
Right.
Because
wow.
usually when someone begins to do these things that we were talking about, that list of symptoms, someone is just saying to you in other words, you know what, I am hurting, please
I
help
need
me. That's
help.
a message that they're saying, yeah, I'm hurting, I need help. So you need to focus, as I said, on the feelings of this person, not on their actions. Because action is just like someone who's about to sink and somebody comes to rescue them, as we've always had that, they kind of drag this person down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They don't
yeah.
understand that they are also dragging them down, but to them, they are just trying to fight for life. So sometimes when they are harsh with you and doing all these nasty things to you, someone is just saying, please, I'm hurting, I need help, but they don't know what is going on with them. So encourage, the third thing is encourage your partner to seek treatment. Take them to your medical practitioner, take them to a psychologist, take them to a psychiatrist. Just don't sit on symptoms, especially if they persist for a long time, right?
Hmm.
And also say you
Jesse,
have gone
sorry.
through.
I'm gonna just hold you on that one. I really want us maybe just to go back on this part that you just spoken about, where if a person is drowning and you try and come and rescue them, they may drag you down with them. Uh,
Yes.
it's such a valid point that I've never thought about myself. That when a person is, but also I also want us to be very clear about it. That maybe talk a little bit more about that. That sometimes a person might stick around in a situation and just say, "Oh, the reason why my spouse is being so mean is because
They are drowning.
they're drowning and it's a mental condition." Whereas it's
Yes.
not, it might not even be that. So,
True.
what is the difference between a person who is just generally being mean to their spouse because maybe they went out of the marriage or because there's some other issues that are somewhere that have got nothing to do with mental illness, and that kind of meanness of a person who's actually drowning and just kicking and screaming for dear life.
Okay. Um, you know what, Simba? I think every form of behavior which is unbecoming or unwelcome by someone whom you're supposed to love is a sign of a mental health problem. Let me read to you the definition of mental health by the World Health Organization. They say that mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his community or to her community. So for me, once somebody begins to display the symptoms of someone who's drowning and when they are drowning, to me, in a way, it's someone who's not feeling well. They need to be checked. They need to be checked. But as you rightly said, sometimes it could be somebody who's just wanting out. So again, it's a matter of finding out and knowing the causes of this behavior that your partner is exhibiting. So it then goes back again to your history, to your background, to how you know somebody. And if you try to introduce this kind of help that we're talking about, and you realize that no, this person is not even listening, and this person is not even admitting to having these problems in him or himself. And then I think it's because usually when people then begin to have these problems, they go to seek intervention from a third party, right? A counselor or a doctor or a friend. So during those discussions, it then can come out that this husband is just tired with this wife, they want out. Then that can be resolved. So I think you are very right. There is need for you to figure out whether this is a mental health illness or this is someone who just doesn't want to be in a relationship anymore. But however, if someone is in a relationship and they are harsh to their partner, for me, I still insist that it's a form of a mental health illness. Why do I say so, Simba? Some of the problems that people experience in marriage do not start after they say, I do, I do. Some of the problems that many couples first begin from the day that they were born. Why do I say so? Psychologists say that when we are born, we are like a clean white sheet of paper. We are born into the world as aliens. We are foreign to the world. We know nothing. We were living in a different environment altogether, and we are being introduced to this foreign world where we need to learn from day one how to survive in the world. So we learn through observation from day one. The day you were born, Ivy, you began to observe how your mother yawned, how your mother shouted, how your mother laughed, how your mother chewed, how your mother, slept. All those things you observed, and everything that you're doing now, you learned it through observation. So now, coming to relationships, how you accept love and how you give love is determined largely by how the people who brought you up, particularly your mother and your mother, expressed love within themselves. If you grew up in an environment where your daddy was bashing your mother and beating you all up, your little mind, which is just growing, is only 3 months old. It observes all that and it says, oh, so this is what love is. Love is hurting the person you say you love. Love is bashing your wife. So as you grow up and you become a man, those are the attributes you exhibit. It's not your problem. This is what you were introduced to the world as a way of relating with the person that you love. So most people who are abusive have learned that through observation during their childhood. So sometimes it then also helps to try and understand the background of your partner. For example, Ivy, say, for example, your father, let me use Simba as an example. Say your mother was that kind of mother who's undesirable, the mother who was not there. You tried to run to her. You want to, because when you are growing up, you want to be hugged, you want to be embraced, because you want to belong. You want to know that you belong. You want to know that you are safe. And then suppose your mother, every time you ran to her, she'll say, she'll always be chasing you out of the house. When you are beaten by your friend, you come home, mommy, he has beaten me. Go back and beat him. What, you're weak. You grow up, you become a man. What do? You get married to Ivy. Ivy is the closest person to your mother. Your mother hurt you because she deprived you of the love that you needed, that is required for a person to have, to grow up. Ivy is the nearest thing to your mommy that you have. So what do? You still have that wound. What do? It's payback time. So you begin to abuse your wife unconsciously. This is not a decision that you sit and say, today I want to beat her up. Subconsciously, you are just saying, this is my time to pay back. And what do? You start abusing your wife, because it's something that you are paying back your mother's sins. The same applies to the women. If you grew up with a father who was absent or who was abusive, now the big problem about our minds is, as we grow up, we learn certain things that we take in as beliefs, right? If you grew up, Ivy, with a father that was abusive or absent, your mind is accustomed to that absent father, abusive father. When you're 16, 17-year-old and it's time for you to attract a boyfriend, our minds have got a tendency to get attracted to what is familiar. What is familiar to do is absent father, abusive father. When you're 17, remember, we don't get attracted by our eyes. That's what we think. It's our minds. It's our minds that get attracted to the person that we then choose to say, this is the love of my life. So you only get attracted to what is familiar to you. So sometimes the problems that we have in marriages are a result of the things that we went through in childhood. I've said a lot.
Yeah. Wow, Jessie, that is fact. That was fact. So coming back to the issue of a spouse, say, who's slipping into depression. Yes. I just want to make sure that we know the differences, because sometimes as couples, we want to draw certain things from our spouse or manipulate our spouse. So in your opinion, would the person who's depressed actually say, I'm depressed, or I'm suicidal, or I'm gonna kill myself? Because we've often heard of people who say, you know, this is what my spouse has been saying quite a lot, and it makes me jump and drop everything that I was doing so that I pay attention to them. And it becomes sort of a back and forth. So is it something that you can actually say someone who's in that state would be able to just verbalize and say, oh, I'm depressed, or I'm suicidal, and stuff like that? Or are they just taking advantage of the fact that they get special treatment out of it?
Oh, yes, we have lots of sources who definitely want to take advantage of that. But sometimes the truth will always come out. You can fake up to a certain point, I believe. If you're faking a mental health problem when you want attention in one way or the other, you are going to be caught. But anyway, my suggestion is the only way we can know, because all these we were talking about are just signs and symptoms. We cannot diagnose somebody by ourselves to say, this one is a depressed person. The only person that can confirm that is a medical practitioner. So once we pick the symptoms, the best thing that we could do is to then try and go to have a diagnosis. Remember, I said, once someone begins to exhibit certain symptoms physically, yes, we might think that this could be a heart problem, but we don't start buying medications on our own before taking someone to the doctor to get checked. So the same applies. If someone is exhibiting signs of depression, the best way is to convince them, if you can convince them, to go and see a medical practitioner who can then carry out tests to determine whether this is a mental health or this is just a marital issue that needs to be handled at family level or at counseling level. So again, it depends on how much you know your spouse. The symptoms could be the same. It's very difficult to separate the two. But I believe those who are faking it can be caught at some point. But the best way is to make sure you go and get checked. And you mentioned something about whether someone openly says, I'm depressed or I'm suicidal. Yes, there are actually people who would tell you that I'm depressed. And some of them, according to some statement I read, 50 to 60% of all people who died by suicide, they gave some warning in their intentions to a friend or a family member. But in most cases, just as you were rightly saying, people are quick to say, this one is an attention seeker. They are just seeking attention, and then they leave you like that. And before you know it, 50 to 60% of people who have committed suicide have actually made their intention clear that I'm not okay. One day I'm going to kill yourself. So it's very important sometimes to just observe for a while and listen to what someone is doing, and check their behavior when they are not being watched. You just need to be clever and witty, just to try to catch someone if they are lying or they are telling the truth. Because when someone is by themselves, they might not pretend, or when they are with their friends, you can also ask their friends or their workmates how they are behaving and what they are doing. Because someone who's depressed, sometimes it's very difficult. You can, during the days that I was, the years I was depressed, very few people knew about it. I would dress up, go to work, and spend the whole day being all jovial, doing everything I was required to do in society, but I was still depressed. So it can be very tricky. It's not an easy thing to deal with. So we are saying, you as an individual, if you begin to feel certain things, please reach out and get help. If you are with a partner or family member and you begin to watch these symptoms, especially those that are very consistent over a period of time, then it's a sign that it's a mental health illness. This is not just an abusive, tendency. And then we seek help, because my message, my recommendation is, we need to reach out and help somebody. People need help before things get out of hand.
So, talking about the way that people behave at home and at work and with friends, would you say a person that is maybe stressed or depressed or whatever form of unwellness mentally, would you say that their behavior is the same all round? Or are they able to do one thing at work because maybe they're trying to cover up and be another at home? I'm asking this because we're trying to see if there's a pattern. So if I pick up something about Simba, should I expect to ask his friends and get the same thing, and then ask his workmates and get the same thing, so that I come to a certain conclusion?
Conclusion. Yes, I believe you can be able to do that because there are some symptoms that are not easy to hide, especially when someone begins to become hopeless and helpless. When they are with their friends and they're talking about their plans, they can pick that this person, when we are talking about what we want to do in the next 5-10 years, they are either quiet or they are very dismissive. It is possible for you to then track and be able to pick a consistent behavior at work, with friends and at home. However, depression is it's a very evasive disease. Sometimes someone can just pretend to be okay all round, and sometimes from nowhere you just find out that they've hung themselves. Sometimes you can never tell, but in most cases you can tell this behavior changes. And sometimes, yes, you can actually track with friends and family, and they can tell you that this behavior has, we've also seen it. Have you ever seen that sometimes when someone has committed suicide, people begin to say, no, man, yeah, I thought so. I saw it 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago. I saw it. I thought I heard him say this and that. So we are observant. We hear these things, but we don't take them seriously. That's why we are always supposed to be very alert, especially in this day and age where there's so much pressure and stress. Let's just be, it doesn't take away anything from us. Let's be, extra alert when we are dealing with our relatives and loved ones, so that we can pick things that are irregular. We might not pick everything, but one day you might just save a life by just picking that one trait that continues to be consistent throughout, his other social spheres.
That's so good, that it pays, even in marriage, it pays to be a lot more observant and not to be dismissive of things that you pick up, and not just say, oh, maybe it's just me thinking, overthinking things, but to just have that kind of relationship with your husband or with your wife where you are also so free to bring out certain things that you're seeing so that you can quickly catch things before they go wrong.
Yes.
Stress is a big thing, especially with COVID and everything going on around us, around the world. Are there things that we can begin to do as husband and wife in marriage to sort of reduce the stress, or to see that, okay, my spouse is stressed? Let me, what can I do? What can I do if I see that this is what is going on with my spouse? I have been observant, I am alert, and I've picked up certain things, and what can I do? I know you mentioned that checking to a medical practitioner, but are there other things as well that I can do maybe to also help reducing the stress, or to make life a lot more bearable for my spouse?
Absolutely. There is a lot that we can do as individuals and as couples, in dealing with stress. As you have rightly said, stress is always all around us. Stress is just another topic that would need its own 1 hour, but I'll try to really, compress it as much as possible. So when you realize that your partner is stressed, or you yourself are stressed, there are certain things that we can do, because there isn't much that we can do about the circumstances or the situations that happen in the world around us. We cannot control those things. We cannot control COVID. We cannot control lockdowns. We cannot control the rise, of the prices of food and stuff. But we almost got 100% control of how we react to the things that are happening around us. So it's always important as couples to always sit down and then, talk about the things that are bothering each other, that are bothering your partner, and come to a point where you help each other to understand that we cannot, control our exterior environment, but we can control how we react to it. What do I mean? I mean that we need to get into the habit of taking care of our mental health. Taking care of our mental health. Okay, I'll give an example of the situation, of COVID-19. since COVID-19 began, we were told from all corners that we needed to enhance our immune systems. We needed to take the zombanis, even if you're not sick. You needed to take the vitamin C's. You just needed to boost your immunity, isn't it?
Right.
So that even if the disease comes, it is not going to hit you hard because your immunity is strong. So my advice is, stress is going to happen to all of us, but we need to enhance our mental immunity, our mental strength on a day-to-day basis, so that when the day of calamity comes, we are not going to be hit that hard. What do I mean by taking care of our mental health? So what happens is, when you are stressed, there's a stress hormone called cortisol, which your body produces to allow your body, well, it's a long topic, I won't get into it, but let me just say your body produces cortisol. Now, an excess of cortisol in your body is going to cause you to feel sick in the body. So, and cortisol is a result of you reacting to the external environment. So for you to be able to be mentally immune, or to strengthen your mental immunity, there are some some routines that you can do on a daily basis to make sure that your mind is fit. What are some of those things? It's very simple things. You can spend, like, if you realize that your partner is stressed, you need to help them to spend 15 to 30 minutes a day just doing something that you love. That has got the ability to reduce the cortisol hormone in your system. 15 to 30 minutes doing something that you love, very therapeutic. Then sometimes when you are stressed and you begin to blame yourself for the failure that you are, you need to take a pen and paper. You sit down, you begin to write every good thing about you that you remember. To silence the inner critique by writing down good things about yourself. That's a beautiful mental habit that enhances your mental immunity. And then sometimes when, those times when you and your hubby are not the best of friends, you need to learn to be your own best friend. Sit behind in front of a mirror and begin to tell yourself the things that hubby or wifey was going to tell you if you were in good books. Be your best friend. Be your best friend. You need a friend always. If the friend is not there, be that one. Look into the mirror and say, Jessie, my friend, today I had such a terrible day. And then I said to myself, oh, sorry, Jay, what happened? Oh, sorry, my dear, but I know you are tough. You know what? It's going to be okay. Comfort yourself. Be there for you. If someone is not there because there's a rift in that marriage and that day, be that person. Be your best friend. And then it's important that when you're going through seasons of stress, you celebrate the little wins in your life. Sometimes, Ivy, you come home and you try a pizza and it's half bent, but half it's okay. Celebrate that. You know what, Simba? I did pizza today. Celebrate that. It's got a tremendous therapeutic effect on your mind. And then what's also most important is, at the end of each day, sit down and unwind. Just say to yourself, what are the good things that I did today? Avoid thinking your failures and pains. Just say, what went wrong? What went right with me today? And go to bed with that positive mindset, that positive outlook. It is going to help tremendously to reduce your cortisol. And then last for now, not least, just laugh out loud. Find stuff to laugh about for no reason. Go to Mr. Bean's website, look for those old Mr. Bean things and just laugh, Look for that, what was that English classic comedy about Mrs. Bouquet? Look for that and just laugh. Nothing heals you better than laughter. So those are the things that we can do to help reduce the stress hormone in our systems, and it also enhances our brains to become mentally strong and mentally fit to endure whatever storms that we do face in life.
Wow. So Jessie, as we wind down, we know that for couples, especially if you are the wife that is trying to assist your husband, we know very often that men find it difficult to go and get help, especially if it's counseling.
Mm.
Does it make sense for me to go and get the help myself if my spouse doesn't want to go and get the counseling?
Absolutely. Half a loaf is better than nothing. If you go to see a counselor by yourself, you discuss with him or her what you're going through, because they are an expert, they are a counselor, they will give you tips and hints on how to handle the situation at home or how to convince your husband to then want to come for counseling. And
That's
also
good.
sometimes for your own mental sanity, it might just help you to remain standing even if your hubby is refusing. It's for your own sanity. So I think it is critical that in situations such as those ones, it's better off you go on your own. You will be enhanced yourself, and you'll be also equipped on how to deal with your situation.
Maybe as a final word, you did say that you must go to bed on a high.
Yes.
Is there
I think
hope?
I
No,
know
no,
where
no,
it's
no, no,
going.
no, no, no. It's not going there. When
You
it
can
comes to
read your
mental health
mind.
issues, hope. Tell us about the hope side of things. You know how right now we're talking about COVID cases, but we don't talk as much about the recovery rate as we do about the death rate, about the infection rate. Tell us about the recovery rate when it comes to mental wellness and mental health.
Sorry, come again. The what rate?
The recovery rate.
On mental
Oh,
wellness.
of
Is
mental
there
health.
hope?
There is absolutely hope. If mental health is attended to early, there's 100% likelihood that either you recover fully, like what I did, or you might live a very normal life under medical care. Just like as people can live the rest of their lives with high blood pressure and sugar diabetes on medication, you can live your life normally, because one of the things that causes depression and other mental health illnesses is an issue of chemical imbalances in the brain. So if you are on medication that balances up your chemicals, you can live your life fully, normally. So the important thing is taking action early. Early intervention is always the thing to go. That's why I'm saying be on the lookout. It's not life as usual. Look out for your partner. Any changes, don't be quick to say it's because maybe he doesn't love me. I think she's seeing someone, or I think he's seeing someone. Let that be plan, suspicion C or D, suspicion A, B, and C. Let it be, maybe my partner is suffering from a mental health
That's
issue.
so
Let
good.
me observe for
That's
a
so
while
good.
and see if I can pick patterns, and then I take action appropriately.
Wow.
So recovery, 100% recovery is possible.
I think the last question that I'm going to ask is, I thought this is where it was going, so I might as well just pick up on it.
Okay.
What help is sex in all this? Because you often hear people say, "Oh, I'm stressed, so or maybe he's depressed, so maybe sex will help," or something like that.
Yeah.
How
Effective.
much or how effective is intimacy or sex in helping someone recover mentally?
Your husband, your wife.
I will.
Yes,
I
your
will. I
husband.
will. It does play a very big role, because you know what, they've done some research. In the first world, they do research
Yeah.
on everything. They've done a research, and they say that married people are less likely to have mental disorders because they
Okay.
have higher levels of emotional and psychological well-being than those who are single, divorced, or cohabiting. So marriage protects against feelings of loneliness, and married women, particularly, they enjoy a greater psychological well-being and greater love and intimacy than those who are out. So definitely that does play a part in enhancing mental health, especially in a relationship that is healthy, not in a relationship that is
Of course.
abusive.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow, this has been so good. I want to just stop and just let you continue talking and talking and talking and let's just continue getting it out. But I think definitely, we just barely scratched the
Yeah.
surface, and I think there's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
a lot more to talk about. Like you said,
Okay.
stress is an entire topic on its own. Anxiety is an entire topic on its own. We dealt
True.
with
Very
depression. You
true.
also even mentioned that there's also things like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Those are things that still need to be
Especially,
spoken about and brought out into the fore so that people can really understand
especially
that,
stress.
you know, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Especially
that
stress,
is
Simba. That's a topic that's very important because, okay, people might feel like mental health is far from me, but stress, everyone gets affected by
yes,
Goes
stress.
through, yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
need for us to really have a deeper understanding of what stress really is and
Mm.
how we can avoid it and how we can, overcome it. So yeah, there's still quite a lot to dive
Yeah.
into.
so we'll definitely be calling on you again so that we
Absolutely.
unpack, all of these topics,
Absolutely.
for the benefit of everybody that's watching and would want to know more, and who is in the situation, was in the situation, is going to be in the situation, or who knows, other people, couples out there that are in the same situation. You will know how to help them. Jesse, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your very busy schedule to come and speak to us tonight. Like I said, we'll definitely be calling you back for a
Thank
lot
you so
more,
much.
highlighting and awareness, as you put it to begin with.
Yes.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Simba.
Thank you,
And
Jesse.
thank you, Jesse.
This was a well packaged conversation. There was a lot that we picked up from, especially the part where you said that when your spouse begins to act out and do all sorts of things to you, instead of just looking at it and thinking he's doing this to me, sometimes it's very key to look at it and think this is a,
Mental.
a siren to say help. Um, so it was very enlightening. So thank you so much for the
You're
conversation we had
welcome.
tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right, Jesse.
All right.
Okay, till next time.
Till
Thank
next
you.
time.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Yo, you know what? This was dope. This was okay. This was really good.
It was.
Like that point that you mentioned. I'd never thought about something like that. I'd never thought about that mental unwellness can get a person to do something like that, to be at a point where you're just all out against your spouse, and all of a sudden you're wondering, what, this is not how this person was. We are normally peaceful,
Yeah.
and he's normally peace loving, she's normally peace loving, but all of a sudden they're just frantic about everything. Sometimes it's not an issue of they're seeing somebody else or that there's some shenanigans happening somewhere. Sometimes it's just really a situation of a person who's just screaming out for help, like the example that she gave, that when a person is drowning, sometimes they just hold on to whatever is close to them and they drag it down with them, not necessarily because they want to drown the other person as well, but they're trying to just fight for their lives. So be on the lookout. I think for me, my greatest takeaway from this is be on the lookout, be very alert, and be very observant, and don't be dismissive whenever you begin to notice certain things happening in your home, with your spouse. Be able to bring those things up. First and foremost, nurture that relationship with your spouse, that you can talk about anything, so that it's easier for you to bring up some of these things. Say, look, I'm noticing this. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is out of character. I think we need to go and see somebody. I think we need to go and see our our doctor, our GP. Maybe he can recommend us, or we can, and refer us to somebody else. But I think something is not right. It's not quite right here. So for me, absolutely, this was really good.
It was really good. And I think, like I said initially at the beginning, that making marriage work is about looking at marriage holistically. And, just this aspect to say that mental wellness can affect, or the lack of it can affect your marriage in this way. You end up having fights, not because this person doesn't love you, but because mentally maybe things are not well. So let's look after our marriages. Let's make marriage work in all sections, all aspects of our marriages. And let's make sure that we are paying attention to each other, looking after each other, and looking out for signs and symptoms for each other. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Peace. Thank you for joining us, Molly, Wusi. Tofara, we see you. Priscilla, thank you very much for joining us. Mongile, Pamela, yeah, thank you. Juanita, thank you. Stambiso, Hilda, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We really appreciate it. I hope you have picked up certain things. I hope you have learned as much as we have, and that you can best able to, get to marriage in the right place, or in the place that it's supposed to be. Also, not just you, but also even for the people that you know, people that are around you, people at your workplace that are coming up with these issues that are saying, this is the issue that I'm facing in my marriage. Hopefully, after some of these, conversations, you are best able to say, oh, I once heard this topic being mentioned, and I think this is how you need to go about it, and it helps you and it helps the next person. And for us, that will be mission accomplished. So thank you so much for coming through. Again, remember, just share. This video is still going to be up, so just share this on your timeline so that you can share, so that we can have as many people watch this as possible, especially for today. Like, this whole mental mental health is shrouded in so much mystery that we really need to shed a lot more light on it so that we can help a lot more people as we go. But I think, thank you. That's it for tonight. My name is Simba.
And I'm Ivy.
Or you can call us Mr. and Mrs. And remember,
keep on loving.
Keep on loving. Good night. Goodbye. Good morning. Good afternoon. We'll see you again next week.